Welcome to Beyond the Sermon. My name is Savanna Beasley, the Assistant Director of Communications here at Hyde.
I'm Justin LaRosa. I serve as the pastor of the Portico. I'm so grateful to be here. Thanks for tuning in.
This week you talked about the inspiration that we can find within love. And
sometimes it's hard.
And sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's really hard. And so one of the questions I had for you was, what do you do when it's hard? And it's someone you already love and you've built a good relationship and it's a healthy relationship, but on the days that it is just so hard to be inspired to love that person, to wake up and do that extra little thing, the breakfast in bed, or I made your coffee this morning, or the thing that makes them feel special, the thing that makes you feel special.
I think that it's a great question because it's probably one that so many people deal with most of the time. Sometimes we have the big forgiveness issues that are hard for us to get over. But, love is a decision. It isn't always a feeling. It's a direction of the will towards love, towards God, towards your partner, towards your family, towards the community, but mostly towards God. And so I think that inviting God in to the space of discomfort or unwillingness. I always say kind of the first step is, God, I don't want to, help me, help me. That's like a real honest, simple, practical thing that you can invite God into your unwillingness. God, help me with my unwillingness to love.
Which is actually something you talked a little bit about in your sermon, about how, she was struggling to reach out her hand and provide that forgiveness. And she just said, hey, God, you got me here, and he did, and he provided. And so what happens when you have those situations where you think that you've forgiven someone, or you think that you've moved past it, and all of a sudden one day you just wake up and it strikes you again, and you're just sucked right back into that moment of negativity and lack of love, just hatefulness and spite.
I think that's normal, especially, in that instance, especially, and something so big that has been done to somebody, whether they're a little kid and got abused, or, that story is huge, but you can see the power of God working in and through that. So it's not like once you forgive someone, it doesn't always just ameliorate. And actually, if you go on the signposts where she tells that story about that, she actually goes on to say, like, I wish that forgiveness was just easy for me forever after that. Yeah. It's not. It's a decision. It's a choice. It's a direction towards God. And that often takes some rehashing. To give you just a quick example, many folks know that I've been in a 12-step community for a long time, right? And in the 12-step community, you're supposed to do an inventory of people you're resentful for. And then you have to go make amends, blah, blah, blah. It's the best discipleship plan of Jesus there is, actually. But what I have found in my long time of being sober is that some of those same names keep showing up on my list. And,
the checklist of enemies.
That's right. Not enemies, moral superiority that we hold over, or whatever that is. But sometimes it's a pattern, right? It's a pattern of needing to invite God back in and to be humble, to remember that God has forgiven us, right? And it's the one thing that Jesus was real clear about. If you don't forgive, you're not forgiven. And that's an inspiration, and it's a heavy challenge.
Yeah. Well, and that kind of goes into, I guess my next question was, what happens if the person that you're trying to forgive or you're trying to love is the person that has caused so much harm in your life? Like, what does it look like for you to have a healthy relationship and a loving relationship the way that God wants us to have when they are your abuser, when they are your toxic person that you're trying so hard to cut out?
Thank you so much for saying that, because one of the things that I can't say clearly enough with people, that not all forgiveness ends in reconciliation. It just doesn't. There are people in our lives that we need to be disconnected from, right? That doesn't mean that we don't forgive. We can forgive, and forgive releases us from the bonds and chains and drinking the poison and hoping the other person dies, right? And releasing them from renting space in our head and offering them to God, right? And letting them go in peace. But what that does do is it reconciles us or it reconnects us back to God. And so, work with a good therapist, work with a good sponsor, work with a good pastor to figure out, is this somebody that I need to cut out of life? I actually love this book by Dr. Henry Cloud called Necessary Endings. He also wrote the book Boundaries. To know when a relationship has run its course, and even in a family unit, sometimes that's kind of the hardest thing, right? When things get really toxic. So discernment, but love is not always just this tender kumbaya. Right. It's fierce. And sometimes love means cutting somebody off. Yeah. Too. Definitely. Telling parents who have an addicted kid that continues to do destruction to cut them off from giving them money or this and that. That doesn't feel like love, but sometimes it is.
It's a version of it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. My last question, I think, kind of ties into almost the opposite side of that, right? Mm-hmm. Is how you can use your abuses or your abusive situations, your toxic situations that you've been through, your experiences. How can you use those to connect with others and show them love?
Yeah, that's it's a beautiful question in that, I often say, I try to say at Easter and Christmas every year, I don't know that I did it this year or that. Not everything happens for a reason. I get really irritated when people say that because there's some where that can be actually really harm a lot of people. Yeah. However, God can use everything that happens for a reason. Doesn't lead anything to waste. Yeah. So if we have had suffering done to us or we've done suffering, like God can use that for us to help others. Yeah. We can, as long as we're not vomiting our own stuff on other people, but trauma bombing people like, I did this, but like, you know that there's hope on the other side and you can meet, like, for me and my dad and his addiction, who wasn't able to be involved in my life, that drove my passion to meet people where they are and to do something about it. And that's a big call. God doesn't let it go to waste. And, spiritual gifts isn't always your natural talent. It can be aligned with that. Sometimes it's not. But when we combine those things together, when we look at the world and in a places where our heart breaks or our heart sings and our gifts align with that, we really are being a part of building God's kingdom, which is a good thing. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Justin. I got a lot out of this conversation. I hope you guys did too. If you or anybody you know is struggling with forgiveness, with addiction, with any of the things that we discussed today, please feel free to reach out, submit a prayer request on our Next Steps page, or just reach out to us directly in the comments below. We'd love to walk with you. Yeah. I mean, really, the church community is a school of grace, and we got to practice it together. So we hope you have a great day, and remember, you are loved. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.